What drives us to pivot, to change our path, or to do something new? Sometimes it's external situations pushing us out of our comfort zone. And sometimes it's a deep internal desire to do something we love or something we strongly believe in. In episode 2 of the Personal Pivot series, we explore the situations which push us to pivot and their impacts. I'm Farhana Das Mohammed, and I am very excited to have Lori Niles-Hofmann as our guest today.
Lori has been an incredible person to know. I've gone to her for advice. We've gone to her for laughs. We spend a lot of time connecting when we can put it into her busy schedule. Lori is an EdTech strategist, one of the best. She's the co-founder of Niles-Hofmann, advisor to Fortune 500 companies. She's got one foot in Canada and one foot in Europe, and that keeps her very, very busy. So welcome, Lori.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure, and I'm glad that you mentioned laughter, because I think we've had many of those over the years. It is really, really an honor to be here. Thank you for asking me.
As you know, we're talking about pivots, and maybe I can call you the queen of pivots. You've done some amazing stuff, and you've propelled in amazing ways. And I really would love to continue to learn how you do it and what drives you. So maybe let's talk about it. Like, what are some things that you consider pivots in your life?
Pivots, there's personal and there's career. I'll start with career. I've stayed always in ed tech, but certainly maneuvered around everywhere from corporate I went to a startup that was on a journey to IPO, which was the craziest ride ever that I've been on. And I've been in global roles. And then I was contract, and then now, I'm independent, and I do have a business partner in Madrid. So it's really been all over the place, it is pivoting, and in some cases it's been survival, and in other cases it's been a desire for something else, to carve my own path when I knew I was just being constrained. So it's a number of things, but I think it's important to do, and I guess I don't like being too comfortable for too long. Other times I didn't feel I had the leadership support, and I wasn't being mentored or coached, and I knew that was just, there was nothing keeping me there to grow with. So I made plans to move.
And you know what I love about what you just said is that you make plans to move. So I know a lot of people might stay in a miserable situation for a really long time and make excuses for why they wouldn't move. But you have actually initiated a lot of your pivots. I know there's a lot of times also where we kind of get pushed to pivot, right? So has that ever happened?
In terms of being pushed to pivot, yes. I have been pushed to pivot, and I didn't want to. In one situation, I was really proud of what I was building. It was going in a really good direction, so good that they decided they needed to, bring in a VP to look after it rather than put me in the VP position. And he decided, his exact words to me were, "Thank you, dear, I'll take it from here." And I was out within 9 weeks. And then there's been other times too where I've looked around, taken a hard look at, culture and fit, and just went, not for me. But I think to your point about preparing, when you prepare to pivot, that's a time too where you've got to be really cognizant of what it is you're prepared to lose. What fear tolerance do you have, because it is scary to do, and learn how to protect yourself.
And have you felt that there is a difference when you pivoted intentionally versus you being pushed to pivot?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I've been pushed, certainly there's that feeling of hopelessness, fear. And you do get that when you're deciding to pivot, but you have some control, right? You can decide the date, you can decide the time, you have to do it, but some of that anxiety you can mitigate. When you get pushed and you got to go, that is, can feel like a free fall. I found ways that when you do pivot, it's when you reap the rewards. There's nothing more satisfying, now when, like, well, not during COVID, but pre this, I was, in London, Basel, Madrid, all over the place, working with different clients and doing fascinating problem solving.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be doing that in my career had I not pivoted in all those different ways. I'd
Mhm.
probably be, I hate to say it, in a very safe job at, a reasonable level, going back and forth on the TTC to downtown, and that's just not me.
Feeling the need to be grateful yet vaguely uncomfortable and upset about what you're doing in life, right? If you were
Correct,
in that, yeah.
correct.
You brought up COVID, and it's such a reality for us right now. And
Yes.
so I feel like we almost can't not say something about it. Have you done anything that you would consider as pivots or different things during this time?
Yes, we've certainly had to pivot our business to virtual, which is, what really hasn't been that big of a change. I think of it's more of a change for our clients who are used to me coming on site.
Mhm.
So, we have to navigate, the complexities of that and time zones and all those sorts of things. I think the way that I myself pivoted was the type of content and advice that we were giving to our clients. We really had to think carefully because these have much greater implications than before. And that sense of responsibility weighed very, very heavy on me. And, now it's interesting because I see in a lot of ways this whole situation is tapping into people's resilience and understanding that there are things that are possible, and to be really clear on what things are maybe not possible for them, right? And I think that's also very valid. You need to know both. You really need to have
Mm.
yourself tuned into both, and what your limits are and what you can handle, because we're all going to come out of this differently, all of us. I think a lot of people too will come out of this and decide they want to be something completely different. Who knows?
Yes, I think a lot of people are already starting to feel that because
Mhm.
a lot of times when you're in this hamster wheel and you're just putting
Yeah.
one foot in front of the other as fast as you can, your brain doesn't get that space to really explore what you really want to do. And a lot of us are not living or in careers that are allowing us to explore our purpose. But the more I'm listening to and watching what's happening in the AI space, and
Mhm.
the more that we think about future where our task-based things will all be taken up by AI,
Mhm.
and increasingly smarter AI, we are quickly going to run out of things to do just for the sake of doing.
Right.
So we're going to need to learn how to be more purposeful and live more purposeful lives so that we can find that fulfillment. Before COVID happened, I could
Mhm.
not imagine how quickly we were going to get there. But I feel like this year is almost like a special pilot incubation project that's kind of preparing our brains for this new reality, if that makes any sense.
It makes total sense. And and to your point about purpose, I'm having those types of conversations with a lot of people who are talking about what their purpose is now, and they don't want to necessarily go back to normal, what normal was, and making bold choices. And I think it's inspiring and it's healthy. When it comes to pivoting and what, I don't think I really realized it until I was a big girl. I was older. That a lot of the times, when I did choose to pivot, particularly as I said, if I didn't have coaching or whatever, is I realized I had come up against a glass ceiling. I, I wasn't really appreciating it for what it was. I wasn't getting the opportunities. I wasn't, getting the recognition. I wasn't getting exposed to the projects that I was capable of doing and wanted to do. And it wasn't until I made sort of probably the biggest pivot to go independent
Hmm.
that went away, and I could go into the roles and do the type of work that I know I'm capable of doing and that I want to be able to do. And it sounds ridiculous to say I didn't realize that, but as I look back and in hindsight, I'm like, that's what that was. And I was being passed over time and time again. And now being in doing what I'm doing, it's I'm going to say there's a lot of pride in now being contacted by some of these really big companies, and they're talking to their chief learning officers and solving real tangible problems and doing the strategic work I always wanted to do. Um, but you know, it's sad to say I had to get out of some of those roles. And that's not to say, you know, also too, being independent, what's been great is I've had a lot of good mentors and a lot of people help me along the way.
Yeah.
And for that, I'm eternally grateful.
I think that having the mentors, having people who are glad to help makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Looking at Lori.
No, likewise. We both will do.
But you're right about the glass ceiling, and it comes in different ways, and it comes in different shapes, and a lot of times it's disguised.
Yes. Yeah, you know, it can be disguised as you're given an opportunity, but it's because they want to, you know, make them look like they're diverse, or they, you know, or something that is, you're given a role, but yet they want you to do things that are supposedly more feminine. And there's a lot of different things that come into play.
And kudos to you for pivoting for those reasons, because a lot of times, I think less and less now, but a lot of times people have accepted it because they felt like they couldn't do any more than that. Wow, Lori, this has been so eye-opening as usual. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, sharing your experiences, because I think that I've absolutely learned from it, and I know that other people will find a lot of inspiration from it as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to seeing the series.